Drodzy Państwo, mamy wielką przyjemność gościć w naszym studio specjalnych gości, a to są sędzia sądów chicagowskich, jak na razie przez 30 lat, a z nim jest także nasz współpracownik, można powiedzieć, przez ostatnie 12 lat, John Cushing.
Good evening, Adam.
John, yeah.
Good evening.
And our judge, our guest, this is Margaret Stanton McBride. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Dzień dobry. Drodzy Państwo, więc przyczyną naszego spotkania to są zbliżające się wybory, które odbędą się 17 marca w stanie Illinois. Między innymi właśnie nasz gość, czyli pani Margaret, jest kandydatem na sędziego Supreme Court, czyli Sądu Najwyższego stanu Illinois. Więc oczywiście przyczyna przyjścia do nas do radia to jest bardzo prosta. Chodzi o polskie głosy, o Polish voters. I dzisiaj my to zrobimy w ten sposób, że ja jeszcze dopowiem po polsku różne rzeczy. Jeśli idzie o studia, pani Margaret skończyła Newton College of Sacred Heart, a także Uniwersytet DePaul, gdzie skończyła prawo. W sumie 30 lat spędziła jako sędzia i obecnie jest sędzią Sądu Apelacyjnego w Cook County. No a cały plan dotyczy właśnie, ażeby została wybrana 17 marca na sędziego Supreme Court stanu Illinois. John?
Good evening.
I'm giving you English language in your hands.
You know, the only Polish I know is that kocham mojego adwokata. So once we get that out of the way, I love my lawyer. We can start now.
Oh, okay.
Andy, it's great seeing you. I know everybody that's listening, I've been gone for a little bit. I mentioned it before that I'd had some bumps in the road medically last summer and in the fall, and that I've not been able to be here to the extent that I'd like to. So I want to, number one, I want to thank Adam again for inviting us back here to do this. This is an opportunity that I've relished for, I think, 14 years now. We've been doing this. So I wonder, it's a wonderful thing. And I'd like to tell everybody that's listening tonight is that we've had people come on and talk before. We now have the most distinguished, other than my sister Mary Beth, the most distinguished guest we have ever had on this radio program. And I'd like to introduce tonight to you appellate court judge of the state of Illinois, Margaret Stanton McBride, who is a wonderful, wonderful jurist and lawyer and a friend, and we're very lucky to have her here. So good evening, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, John, and also.
So I understand we're tape recording this in addition to just recording it. We're having it on video. So I think, Adam, you'll be able to have people access it if they want to actually see this interview and what the judge has to say tonight, correct?
Correct. Plus, next week, we're going to have everything translated to Polish, and that's going to be in Courier with our pictures. They have to see how our judge look like actor. And we're going to have disc. We're going to have on YouTube. We're going to do everything what we're supposed to do.
You're the best. You're the best. So to start off tonight, Judge, first off, you're sitting right now in a position as an appellate court judge in the state of Illinois, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And just basically for our listeners, just so we can get a little bit of a tiny structure what the whole legal system is about, you were, before you were an appellate court judge, you were a trial judge in Cook County, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as a trial judge in Cook County, basically what were your duties?
Well, I was in a number of different divisions in the trial court. Most people are probably more familiar when they hear about the criminal division, but I sat in a number of divisions. But we resolve. We either have a trial with a jury, or if the parties want to have a judge decide the case, it's basically a lawsuit between parties, either on the criminal side or the civil side, and the judge can act as the fact finder, but also as sort of like a referee, making sure that the rules of procedure and the rules of court are followed.
So when somebody files a lawsuit and says, well, I'm going to go to court, I'm going to have a judge or a jury determine and figure out what the problem is and help resolve my case, that's the trial level where there's witnesses and there's evidence and there's a resolution at the end of the case one way or another, you win or lose, or some compromise to that extent, correct?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay, so that's really a battleground.
Yes.
And as a trial judge, you have to make decisions on the run, excuse me, all day long when people are in front of you asking you if what they're saying is proper, if it's appropriate or relevant, and the rest, correct?
Correct. We have to make rulings every day.
It would make me crazy. How long were you a trial judge?
I was a trial judge for 12 years.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrific. And I know I personally had appeared in front of you a couple times during that time. Before you were a trial judge, though, what made you want to become a lawyer in the first place?
Well, short version is my father was a lawyer, but died fairly young, 56, massive heart attack.
Oh,
Boom.
just a kid, huh?
Yeah, he was really, by
my
today's
God.
standards, very, very young. I've got 6 brothers and sisters. My mother, had to sort of take up the charge of helping us all get through everything. But it was really at that point, he kind of, inspired a lot of us. I have 2 brothers that are lawyers. I have 2 sisters that got into law school but didn't
Really?
go. And I decided I was going to become a lawyer too. And that was when I decided I wanted to be a judge too. They came together at the same time.
So what position in the band of 7 kids did you fit?
I'm the 5th. I have 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, and 2 younger sisters.
So you're almost down to the baby level. And
Yeah. Really. Yeah.
And you knew early on in your life that you said, my dad was a lawyer, I want to be a lawyer.
Well, I was 20. So, my youngest sister was 15 when my dad died, but I was
But
20. I was in college.
You'd seen him as you were growing up being a lawyer, and you thought that wasn't attractive.
Well, I did, and he really wasn't a trial lawyer like you, John. He did do he was with a law firm early on, but then my parents moved out to Mount Prospect, and my father got involved in a savings and loan. And he did represent people, usually for free. He was a good guy. But he talked about being a judge. And I thought this would be something that I would like to do after I became a trial lawyer and understood how to try a case and make sure that the rulings are fair. I think you have to be a trial lawyer before you can become a trial judge.
Okay. And I'd like the audience to understand that you and I first met when we were both working in law school as clerks for a law firm that had a fairly general practice. They did all sorts of stuff.
They did. Yeah, they did. Yeah. It was a general civil practice, but all
Right.
kinds of... Actually, and then there was, I don't know if you remember, the one lawyer that did some federal defender work.
Ramsey? Tom Ramsey?
Ramsey.
Oh, no, Tom was my idol.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, my God. Tom would pick up a file and go to court. He had the guts and the brains, and God bless him. And at that time, though, you were exposed to a lot of different types of cases, quite frankly. My memory of that law firm, they had 5 or 6 lawyers in the end doing lots of different things, probate and criminal and civil. And
Yes.
I think I did a personal injury case for Tom Ramsey myself as a clerk. What did you find in that broad experience, the civil experience that you had with them? What did you find being in that arena?
Well, I found that there was a lot of different kinds of areas of law that they practiced. But I have to confess, I wanted to head towards the state's attorney's office and become a prosecutor. I felt I would really get to try some cases, faster down the road, quicker or whatever.
Right.
I just thought I'd get some trial experience sooner. I guess that's the way to put it.
I promise if you'd stayed with Ramsey, you'd have been trying cases
well, that's
the day
true.
you got your license.
And he was such a fine man. He was such a wonderful boss.
He was a terrific guy. So you went into the state's attorney's office from law school, correct?
No, I was with Egan and Keene.
Oh, were you?
I went, stayed with them till about April of 1977.
Okay.
So I was there,
So for a while.
Yeah. So I did do some things. I don't think I actually got to try anything.
No.
Just still an associate. But so I was there for 6 months, and of course you and I were both there during law school.
Right.
But I went to the state's attorney's office in April of 1977.
Okay. And you say that you felt that was the better path of getting in front of a judge to a trial to get your feet wet, to figure out what trial lawyers were really like, and if you were going to be a judge, you'd have to have that experience. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long did you stay in the state's attorney's office prosecuting criminal cases?
10 years and 3 months.
Okay. All right.
I tried a lot of cases. 63 juries.
Well, I'd like to interject at this point, just briefly. You've been a judge for many, 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 many years, many more years than you were a practicing trial lawyer in the state's attorney's office. One of the things that I find universally true, not just of myself, and again, I'm a little prejudiced because you and I work together, and I think you're a terrific judge, and I think you're a terrific lawyer. But one of the things that I found as being in front of you and watching you on the bench when I didn't have a case in front of you was you have a compassion for people who are in front of you and a thoughtful process of listening to the facts and applying the law regardless of any preconceived notions you might have, which I just bring out at this point to say would be difficult for me having an experience of being a prosecutor for 10 years and 3 months. I could see where that would have a very difficult, it might harden you. And I'm so, I don't want to say proud because I'm not proud of, I'm so happy that you are so open to everybody's position in that. How did you get over that hump though? When you're in a prosecutor's office, there's a lot of people there that, first off, the victims are terribly sad to be with the victims. And quite frankly, if you're there long enough, it's sad to be there with the perpetrators because in the end you say, they don't have much of a chance either. So there's everybody in the room has a sad story and their sad events, and you have to do hard things as a prosecutor.
Yes, you do. But at the same time, you feel like you're doing something good. When I became a judge, I had to prove to a lot of people that I wasn't going to be a prosecutor on the bench, because some judges sort of take on that role. Actually, some public defenders may be more harsh than, former assistant state's attorneys. But within the first few years on the bench, I think I proved myself immediately because I think the state's attorneys and the public defenders and the private attorneys that were representing their clients felt that they were going to have a fair hearing. And that's what everybody wants. They don't want someone that they think has already figured out or decided anything. They want, and I was able to, I think, quickly show that I was a fair, impartial, judge, and that I was going to be fair to everybody. And I will say this, that I think you learn a lot in the prosecutor's office, but you also see, you should see both sides, and it's a tough place to be and work every day, but it's a good experience, and I think I gained a lot of experience, and I also saw how, yes, as you said, there are victims, and there's a lot of tragedy on that side. At the same time, the person that's charged, there's a lot of tragedy for that person and their family as well, because it results in damage to everyone, like you said.
And that was stunning to me that you were able to get out from that type of pressure with the open-minded fairness that you still brought to the bench and did that. When you were a prosecutor, though, you were in front of judges all the time. What was your idea of judges at that time? Now you're your idea was to become a lawyer and hopefully become a judge. Now you've got 10 plus years in front of judges. What did you think of your experience in front of the judges when you were a lawyer?
Well, you know, as a lawyer, you're an advocate, and you kind of want you want the judge to go your way, or you want the jury to go your way. And so, you know, you see all sorts of different kinds of judges. And I think you see, you know, to use that movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I like that. I like that movie. Be nice. Be nice.
But, you know, you see different kinds of people, and you want to be, well, I always wanted to be the one that was fair, and that people would respect and admire and know that they could get a fair hearing.
Okay. And when you became a judge, what areas of the law did you sit in and preside over?
Well, like most judges, I started out in traffic court and heard a lot of traffic cases. And, you know, back then we heard all the traffic cases at 321 North LaSalle. Today, they're mostly administrative hearings. It's a process to get a ticket heard. If it's just, you know, a parking ticket or, you know, some kind of minor traffic violation. But back then, all of the traffic cases were heard at 321 North LaSalle. So every day I heard several hundred, you know, cases. A lot of people were there to pay a fine, a small fine, and maybe get supervision. But there were also people that wanted a trial, and we heard lots of trials every day. And those cases were just as important to those people as, you know, other cases of, you could say, of greater magnitude. But anyway, so I spent a lot of time beginning in traffic court. Then I started hearing misdemeanor criminal cases because of my background. And eventually I was at 26 in California. And so the first 5 years on the bench, I heard basically criminal cases.
Well, one of the things that you just mentioned that really impacts me is this. I know I was at 321 North LaSalle quite a bit myself as a brand new lawyer. Your clients get traffic tickets, their kids get them, whatever, and you're over there. But the thing that I found was that first off, I was nervous, and I was a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to look at my clients, and my then boss, who eventually became my partner, looked at me and said, "Don't you ever forget that as nervous as you are, first off, don't ever admit it in front of the client, but understand they're 10 times more scared of standing up in front of a judge and being judged." And so it's important that I want everyone that's listening to understand, excuse me, your compassion for them as people. Whether the ruling was one way or the other doesn't matter, but as a person, it's important to everybody that has an interaction with a court and a judge and that legal system that they come away with it thinking that they weren't abused or that they weren't a victim again. They've already got the ticket,
Mm-hmm.
And they may not think that they deserved it, but at least if they get a fair hearing from someone who respects them, that goes a long way for them to go out to the general public and say, you know what, don't badmouth lawyers to me, don't badmouth judges to me, don't badmouth the legal system to me, because it's important, and because of people like yourself, and many, many judges are not like that at that level. They're biding their time and whatever. And I don't mean to say anything bad about them, but I just want to say that that's an unusual thing. I just want our audience to understand it's a wonderful thing that you had that attitude and were able to do that. So when you became a judge and for what, 10 years and 3 months?
Oh, state's attorney. Yeah. State's attorney, 10 years and 3 months. I was in the trial courts for 12 years, about 12 years.
Okay. And then and that's really the fighting ground there. Then you went to the appellate court. What does the appellate court do? Well,
after a trial is over, there's usually a side that lost unless they've settled or agreed on something. Sometimes after trial, there'll be a settlement, even though one client lost. But the person that loses can appeal. And
does everybody that has a lawsuit that goes to trial, does everybody have a right to an appeal to the appellate court?
Only criminal defendants. Criminal defendants have a right to appeal.
Okay.
They'll have an attorney appointed, just as in the trial courts. Every criminal defendant has the right to have an attorney. So the public defenders work very hard, day in and day out, representing criminal defendants.
And just for a short aside here, there's two basic areas of the law. There's criminal and there's civil, right?
Yes.
Criminal is when if you lose, you end up losing your life, liberty, or some property. You can go to jail. You can get put on probation. There are all sorts of things. But that's when the state comes after you, says you've committed a crime. The other part of the the justice system is the civil courts, where people sue each other for money, They sue each other for rent. They sue each other for 1,000 different reasons.
Yes.
But it's not the state, and at the end of it, no one goes to jail as long as it goes well.
Yes, that's right.
And in civil cases, though, does anybody who's got a result in a civil case, does everybody have a right to go to the appellate court if they were not happy with the result they got in a civil case?
Well, they have the right to go there.
That's what I'm asking
Yes,
for.
they have the right to go there, but they have to pay the cost, the filing fee.
they
And,
gotta
yes,
pay.
but they have the right to go.
But
They
if
can
they're
take
mad
an
enough,
appeal.
they'll figure out how to
Yeah,
pay the
they
cost.
will. They will. Okay.
But so in the civil case, everybody has a right to go to the appellate court, and then you, as an appellate court judge, have to look at a lot of different cases that have been tried at the trial level and determine if the judge gave them a fair trial and if there was any prejudice and it should be returned for a new trial. Is that basically how it
Exactly.
goes?
That's perfect description.
Okay, so you, with a criminal background, had a lot of work to do because I'm sure that as an appellate court judge, you got an awful lot of civil cases that you might not have had much experience with as a lawyer or as a trial judge. Is that fair?
No, actually, what happened, John, was after I was in the criminal division, I was asked to transfer to the law division.
I remember you in the law division.
Yeah.
I was waiting when you were
Yeah.
going to
Okay.
correct that.
So I spent the next 7 years in the trial court, all civil.
Right. And I don't think people had heard that because you have a vast experience in the civil courts.
Yes. So I was in the law division for a couple of years. I was in the chancery division, which you're familiar with, the special remedies and equity.
Yeah.
And then I was named the presiding judge of the Rolling Meadows Courthouse, where I supervised 19 judges, about 20 judges, and the 20 courtrooms out in Rolling Meadows. And I'd go into the courtrooms there too and to hear some cases.
And I hate to say this, but I think you might have ruled against me once or twice when you were in the civil court, and I had to eat it. I'd go back, and my then partner would go, well, judge gets to be the judge, and by the way, I think she's right. We're not appealing that decision. So I have an awful lot of respect for you as a civil jurist and a civil judge. So you didn't just have a one path to the appellate court. You had a well-rounded background to get there.
Yes.
And in the appellate court, that's something that you've been sitting in the appellate court hearing cases for how many years now?
20. Hate to admit how old I truly am, but yes, 20 years.
So if anybody sees this video, understand this. I'm 75 years older than she is. She went to school when she was 2.
Okay.
All right. So anyway.
Thanks, John.
No, you're the one brought it up. I didn't. I'm the one with holes in my head.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, one of the things that I think is we're very lucky to have you here, Judge. And one of the things that's so important, though, that I want all our listeners to understand is it's wonderful that you're here, and it's wonderful you can explain some of the experiences you've had, and God knows I think you're as qualified as anybody in the world could be. I really do, as a judge and as a lawyer. But almost more importantly at this stage, you're now running to become a Supreme Court judge, right?
Yes.
How many spots are there? How many Supreme Court judges do we have?
Well, we have 7 justices, and
so there's only 7 judges at any one time.
Yes.
Supreme Court. How many spots are open this time for people to run?
One spot, one vacancy.
Okay, all right. So there's a scramble here.
Yes, there is.
And how many opponents do you have that are running in the Democratic side of the ticket?
6. There's 6 other people. There were 7, but one of them was one of the other candidates moved to remove one of the candidates from the ballot because he didn't have enough signatures. But so there's 7 of us right now. Make a long story short, 7 of us.
Okay, and in Illinois, and for this election that you're running for, you'll be an appellate court judge no matter what happens, right? This isn't like you threw off the one robe and say I'm
No, I was actually, I was retained for the appellate court in November of 2018.
For another 10 years, right?
Yeah. I've been elected twice, and I've been retained 3 times.
Okay.
So the last time I was retained was in 2018. So that term goes to 2028.
It's quite an accomplishment. But what I'd like to mention at this point, and I can't emphasize it enough, is that the people that are listening here, I assume that you've listened to me for many, many years, and for whatever reason, you enjoy some of the things that we share with you and some of the legal facts and some of the personal stories that we tell. I'm telling you now, as I sit here tonight, that you couldn't find a finer candidate for our Supreme Court in a well-rounded position as a lawyer and a judge than we have sitting here talking to us tonight, Judge McBride. And so one of the things is that in Illinois, the Democrat is quite likely going to win the election in November. Am I fair to say that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's fair to say.
I don't mean to be overreaching, but that's just a fact of life. This is Chicago. This is Illinois. This is what it is. So the real election here is the primary election, at which point we have to get everybody out of bed and vote. Although, Judge, how many different ways are there to vote? And number one, when is the primary election? It's in March.
March 17th.
I kind of remember that. McBride, Cushing, 17th, St. Patrick's Day. That's a Polish holiday, isn't it, Adam?
St. Patrick?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Well, it will be. I tell you, it will be on the 17th.
We got St. Joseph.
Right.
The 19th.
That's right.
At the 19th.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I can't emphasize enough is that as much as you've enjoyed listening over the years and as gracious as Adam has been allowing us to put people on that can help, not just in the legal field, but in all sorts of different areas, we've had people talk. And I can't tell you enough how important it is for everyone that's listening to not just get out of bed themselves on that day, or in a second, the judge will tell you other ways to vote, but to encourage your family members and your friends and your coworkers and all of your relatives to get out and vote. This is, you've just heard, there's only 7 Supreme Court judges. There's only 7. So one vote is critically, critically, critically important. And I'm telling you as best I can, you could not find a more qualified person as a human being, as a lawyer, and as a judge than Judge McBride. And so I can't emphasize enough, you've got to get up and vote in the primary. You have to go do it. And Judge, if you could tell us a couple different ways that they could vote if they don't, if for some reason they're going to be out of town or unavailable on that day, they can do it ahead of time.
Well, there's several ways to be able to vote before the 17th of March, but that's always a good day to vote.
Can they do it now?
No. Early voting starts February 19th. So for early voting, you can actually apply for a ballot to be mailed to your home.
And where do they go to do that? I mean, you say that.
The State Board of Elections.
Okay.
County Board of Elections, rather. This is for Cook County. This election is county voters only, Cook County voters.
They can do that over the internet, right?
I think they can apply over the internet. They can also, when early voting starts, registered voters can go to various locations that are set up in the city and the suburbs, and there'll be announcements, where, but not all the precincts have open voting, but every suburb has a number of areas that are open on the weekends, Saturdays, you can go in and vote early. But then a couple weeks before the primary, there are more locations, and there are a number of locations downtown in the city where you can vote. I
69 West Washington.
Yes, absolutely. There you go, John. You're helping me out here.
That's where I voted last time.
And there's, absentee voting. You can apply if you know you're going to be out of the country. You can vote absentee. But so there are lots of ways to go out and vote.
And all of that is on the internet, so that they could look that up today and find out, I've got 7 options. You've got all those options. There are no reason, if you're listening, not to get out and vote for Judge McBride, and to get out and have your kids, your siblings, your relatives, your family, your brothers and sisters, your spouse, and all of your neighbors and friends and coworkers. There's no reason to avoid this election. This is a very, very important election. Everybody always says that, but I promise you it is, and we're so lucky to have an available candidate that is so well qualified as a person. One other thing, if I could, I don't want to extend and stay beyond my welcome, but some of the things that you've been allowed to decide and you've been faced with as an appellate court judge, do you have a couple of areas that you've enjoyed being a judge in, or that you found to be particularly important to the people? And I don't care if they're the plaintiffs or the defendants or the business or the regular community. Are there some areas that you felt you were very and I shouldn't say that it's limiting, because I'm sure every appellate court judge, every case they decide is very important, because it is precedent setting, which means all the trial judges after that moment that you make those decisions have to follow the decisions you've made at the appellate level. So trial judge might have a flip of a coin at the trial level, but if the case has been decided or the issue's been decided at the appellate level, they look up that case, they find out what the ruling is, and they have to follow it. That's what your power is at the appellate level. And there's some areas in the appellate court that you've made decisions that you found particularly satisfying or not. I mean, they all could be. I don't know.
Well, let me start by saying that I think in the trial courts, I think every single day, because you're right there and you're close to the people that are involved in litigation, that every single day you feel that you're really doing something, that the administration of justice is taking place. And people, I think, see that and they sense that. And if they felt like they were heard that day, whether they lost or not. And I think one of the important things about judges is that when they enter findings, they should let people know the reasons. Mm-hmm. People want to know why they won or why they lost. And so I want to preface everything by saying that, I really appreciate the judges that are working every day in the trial courts, in the trenches, because they're right there and they're with people, and people are coming there for seeking justice. And when they feel like they've been heard, I think that's when the system works best. On the appellate court, we decide cases in panels of 3. So there's 3 judges on every case, three different eyes looking at the case. And so we need 2 people to agree to a decision. And in the vast majority of cases, we seem to all agree. Every now and then a judge will disagree, and we call that a dissent. But there have been a number of cases that I think were significant in terms of the impact on people. But let me talk about one.
And I don't want to push you in an area if you don't feel comfortable.
I want to talk about one case, though, that, we had a serious mortgage foreclosure crisis in the state. And, of course, across the country. People were losing their homes. People that had spent their lives, building their family and their homes and taking care of their children and hoping that they get educated. But anyway, a lot of people were impacted. And there was one case in particular where a woman had she went into foreclosure. She was Hispanic, and she had language difficulty somewhat. And in the foreclosure area, every person has the right to redeem. You know about that, John.
I do.
You have a certain period of time. If your home is foreclosed upon, the bank comes in because you haven't paid the mortgage for whatever amount of time, and they get a judgment against you, and then they can sell the property at a sheriff's sale. Some states don't have judicial foreclosures where they're privately foreclosed upon by the banks. We in Illinois have a judicial foreclosure. So, make a long story short, but everyone has this ability to redeem the property. And this particular person, as I say, had a little difficulty speaking Spanish, and there are people that make a living out of buying foreclosed homes. And you know about tax sales too. Tax sales. People, if they can't pay their taxes,
because the county has to keep running. The state has to keep running. Of course.
And so, but anyway, in this particular case, this woman had gathered up the money to redeem her home, and she called and talked to the company that was foreclosing and said, she had her money, but there was a little bit of a language barrier. So she did go to the office. They went forward with the sheriff's sale. She was not able to redeem, but every case, every sale, every foreclosure sale has to be approved in court. And there are a number of ways that a judge or the court can decide whether or not, if a sale is unconscionable, the court doesn't have to approve the sale. So every single foreclosure sale does have to be approved judicially. And it's not by a jury. This is actually the judge. So in that particular case, the equity in the home was substantial. And so the sheriff's sale, though, the property was sold for much less than the actual equity. And so that was one of the factors that I took into consideration, but also there was it was apparent that there was a language difficulty and a communication problem, so that I did not approve the sheriff's sale. She was able to redeem, and that case it's called Commercial Credit versus Espinoza. That case has been cited as an example of when a sale can be found to be unconscionable. And it was recently cited, by the Illinois Supreme Court as this is the type of factual situation that could result in a foreclosure sale being declared unconscionable, so that the party would be able to redeem. And she was able to redeem.
Makes it a nice day to be a judge, huh?
Yeah.
Good for you.
So, I had another interesting case, though, about a man who spent his whole life looking for a ship. He was a diver. It was called Harry Zeich versus XREL, the state of Illinois. And that was also in that same division, Chancery. They're very interesting and different cases in Chancery where equity can step in when there isn't an adequate remedy at law. This gentleman had been searching for 20 years for a ship called the Lady Elgin. Interesting story. The Lady Elgin was a ship that sailed off the coast of Milwaukee one evening, and all of the crew and passengers sunk. And this particular, ships are often lost at sea. This particular gentleman, Harry Zeich, spent 20 years looking for the Lady Elgin, and he eventually found it off the up north of, maybe a little north of Waukegan. And to make long story short, there were some artifacts on the ship, and it was worth his effort all those years. But one of the issues came up about where this ship had been located, whether it was in state lands, or out in the open lake, where basically the rule always was finders keepers.
Gotcha.
So he got into a battle with the state about the ship because that was the first battle. And eventually it went from federal court to state court. It was determined that it was not embedded in state land, so that he had the right to this ship if he had properly purchased the salvage rights. And anyway, we had a trial, and he had actually purchased the rights from the insurance company going back, we're talking about over 180 years, something like that. I can't remember the exact year, but actually Aetna was around way back then.
Oh, my goodness.
And to make a long story short, again, that was a bench trial, and I decided, based on all the testimony that I heard, that the ship belonged to Mr. Zeich. So that went up on appeal. This was before I was on the appellate court. And the appellate court reversed and said the findings were against the manifest weight. However, it then went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reinstated the findings of fact. And so Mr. Zeich, was able to keep that. But here's one of the reasons I want to tell you about that story. It so happened that at that time in Milwaukee, we're talking in the 1800s, late 1800s. The majority of the individuals in power in the city of Milwaukee were actually Irish. Yes, believe it or not. And a number of the people, like the mayor and other city council persons or whatever, they were all on that ship that night when it sunk, Lady Elgin. And they say that was when the shift of power went from the Irish to the Germans in Milwaukee.
Gracious.
And Milwaukee for
I know
a long time. So isn't that interesting? They say that the sinking of that ship shifted the power in the city of Milwaukee. So anyway, that was an interesting case.
Well, it's wonderful having you here.
And I haven't even talked about the appellate court, but
No, it's wonderful having you here. I know that we're going to have this. You're going to have this translated into Polish also,
Yeah.
So I can finally understand it.
Judge,
Yes.
ask our Polish people to vote for you.
yes, please. I would. First of all, I'm happy to be able to be here tonight with Adam and John Cushing, and I would like your support. I've been a judge for 32 years. We talked earlier about where I've sat. I've had a lot of background in the different areas of the law, which makes me qualified for this position, and I think highly qualified. But if you look at this job like other jobs, we're always evaluated. We have performance evaluations at work. People, sometimes they say, well, you're doing a good job, or you could do this better, and work a little harder at that. But my work has been reviewed. We do it a little differently. Bar associations, they evaluate judges. And when you run for office, you have to fill out a very lengthy questionnaire, and you put down all the names of the people that have appeared in front of you, the lawyers, individuals, and then there's an evaluation process. And so for over 32 years or so, I have been found highly qualified by virtually every bar association that evaluates judges. And it's kind of like so it's a statement about my work. And a lot of the things that have been said over the years are that I'm hardworking, that I'm honest, I have integrity, I know the law. But the most important thing they always kind of come back to is she's fair. She listens to both sides and then makes a decision. And so that's kind of why I'm making a plea to all of you. I think you should you can read about me and learn more about me. I have a website, McBrideforSupremeCourt.com. But I would love for all of you to give me your support, and I encourage you to have your family members and friends, as John said, get out there and vote. These elections are important, and every single vote counts. Every one of us has the right to say something about the people we elect, and I would hope that you would support me, and I'm just happy that I was able to be here with Adam and John Cushing tonight, so thank you.
Andy, don't forget to put the Cushing website up there.
A więc, drodzy Państwo, gdy pójdziecie do wyborów, na balocie zobaczycie nazwisko sędzi pani Margaret Stanton McBride, to wiecie, gdzie zakreślić, w którym miejscu, w którym punkcie. A my z kolei informujemy, iż dzisiejsze spotkanie w następnym tygodniu będzie przetłumaczone, znajdować się będzie w naszym czasopiśmie w Kurierze. Oprócz tego będzie umieszczone na stronach jako całe wideo z tego spotkania dzisiejszego. No i zapraszamy wszystkich do głosowania. Oprócz tego będziemy mieć informacje, we're going to have information about earlier voting places. That's why we're going to have, będziemy mieć w Kurierze także te informacje, kto będzie chciał wcześniej głosować, to może tam pójść. Także te informacje będziemy mieć w gazecie non-stop. We're going to have that information in the Courier and on the radio too.
You will?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And what else? Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. We need a little luck.
Adam, thank you very much. Andy, you're the best.